Hello, hello everyone. Can anyone hear me? Is the sound okay? Okay, excellent. Just to clarify a couple of things, there is a slight delay between me talking and then actual chat going up. So there is around 20 or 30-second delay. Everything that I say is going to be a little bit of delayed as to how the streaming service and YouTube works. The plan is just to wait a couple of minutes for our latecomers to join us. So I will start the whole thing in around, I don't know, like maybe 5 minutes past 10. So the ones that are a little bit late can join us. Okay, so I'll be back in a couple of minutes. Okay, stay tuned. Okay, I think it's time for us to start our webinar. First of all, thank you all for joining me today. My name is David from ComfortClick. Most of you probably already talked to me either via email or tickets or forum and whatnot. Before we start today's webinar, I just wanted to thank you all for joining us today. Of course, I hope that all of you are doing well. All of you are doing okay during the. I think it's time for us to start our webinar. Okay. I hope that all you're doing okay. All you're doing fine during these times, or staying inside home and self-isolating yourselves like we are here. So we thought that since most of you are at home now, most are working from home, it'll be a perfect time to have a training, little webinar for you, just to show you a couple of features that we have that are currently in BOS, answer a lot of your questions you might have, answer a lot of concurrent questions that have been popping up on our forums and tickets and whatnot. So we're just gonna have a little introductional or like explanatory video for you. Today's plan would to be, the first part will be me talking a little bit how the things are done, and then the second part will be our Q&A. So my colleague Matits will join our stream today at the end, and he'll be answering all of your questions you might have during the presentation. So my request would just be, if you do have any questions during the whole presentation, please just write them down, and we'll try to answer them at the end, so we don't get backtracked and lost during the whole thing. Let me just check how chat is doing. Pajama party, okay. I see that a lot of you are from different countries, from basically all over the world. So that's good to see this big of a number joining us today. It's probably a record that we had, more than 100 people joining us today. So hopefully you're all doing okay and doing fine. And sit back and listen to my rambling for, I don't know, 30, 45 minutes now. So I'll try to explain as simply as possible and try to be as precise that I can be. So today's plan would be to show you a little bit of our IFTTT integration and use of RPC service. Later we're going to be talking a little bit of our logs, how our data logs are working and whatnot. And later I'm going to be also showing you how to add a little bit more complexity to your configuration, and also going to be showing you the latest feature that we added in our latest version. This is especially useful for those who are working with KNX and importing your data from there. So I'm reading the chat, and since that everything is okay, the sound is fine. You can also, I think you already see the screen, everything is okay. So that is fine. So I see that more and more people are joining me. So it's best if we start slow so the others can catch up. But okay, so without further ado, let's just start today's webinar. So the first thing that is on my agenda that I'm going to be showing you today is the integration of IFTTT services in BOS. So there is a couple of things that needs to be done before the whole integration begins. The first thing is, of course, you need to have your RPC service enabled on your controller, on your server, whatever. This could be a PC, Jigsaw, whatever. So to get to this RPC service, you can open your configurator and of course connect to your controller. And the next thing, and to find this API and RPC service, you go to General, go to API, and here you have RPC. So of course you need to enable RPC in order to connect, and we need to set our username and password here. So this password is going to be crucial later on, of course, when you're actually going to be connecting our IFTTT service to BOS. So again, simply create a username and password that you're familiar with, and you can use it then to connect. And the next thing that you need to do before we start the whole IFTTT integration is to have your public access enabled to your controller. So public IP available for IFTTT service to connect. Here in the office we created a temporary public access to our test Jigsaw here, so we're also going to be using the public IP of the controller later on. Okay, so next thing I need to do is of course to go to the IFTTT official page. If this is the first time that you're seeing this IFTTT page, of course you need to firstly create an account there. So just create a username and account and so on. And then you'll be seeing this welcome screen that you have. So to create a new service and connect to your controller, you select your account and you go to create. So once you hit create, you can be able to see that you need to, of course, firstly create a trigger, and then after trigger, we're actually gonna add a command that we are gonna be sending to BOS. And to create a trigger, we simply here click on the plus icon, and you can be able to see that you can choose between hundreds and hundreds of different services you can be connected. But for this presentation, we are gonna be using webhooks. So webhooks is just as you can see, it's a little bit of a description of what this is. It's just going to allow us to run some scripts to our BOS. And we're going to, of course, receive a web request. And here we basically name our event. So we can name this, as you can see, as a description. This could be anything. This could be button pressed, front button, window, door, whatever. So for this testing purposes, I'm just going to name it test button. And you create a trigger. And you can see that we're going to make a webhook request. Okay, so this is where your connection between IFTTT and your server is going to take place. So the first thing we need to do is we need to find a URL. The next thing we need to get is our method. So what are we actually doing with this IFTTT service? Are we getting the commands? Are we posting them and so on? And then we need our body. So hopefully that most of you that are joining me today know that BOS and ComfortClick, we have an abundance of information for your connection available on our webpage. Okay, so if you go on our webpage, hopefully that all of you already know we have an abundance of examples, libraries, every device, everything we have on our webpage, and especially our knowledge base. So knowledge base, here you can see there's every node, every device, and every task that is currently in BOS is displayed here with detailed description, step-by-step instructions, examples, videos, and so on. The list goes on. So everything that we can see that we have a little bit of information how the RPC works, and then we have our example commands on the bottom. So as you can see, the service command to connect to our RPC service is listed here. So if we quickly look through the HTTP command, we can see that we have, of course, the HTTPC command at the beginning. Then we need our RPC username, RPC password, server IP, and then the path where the API is. So if we go through this URL, we can go now to our controller. We go where our licensing information is. So opening the licensing information, of course, you get all the information about the controller, so the access ID, licenses, and so on. And of course, you have a temporary public access here as well. So we copy the address. Can close this, and we go to IFTTT, and we paste the URL here. So again, if we go back to our full command, now we have the IP address, the HTTPS, and now the thing that we are missing is our username, password. So we go here and we add RPC David at the address. So it's the same. This is the username and password that we created earlier when we enabled the RPC service. So we add that, and then at the end you see after the IP address we need to enter the path as well here. So we add this at the end, and now we have our URL request ready to be posted to our BOS. In the next method, since we're going to be sending commands and controlling devices from IFTTT to BOS, we're going to change this method to post, and we're going to be using our JSON content type, and now we're actually adding the body. So what are we controlling in BOS? So again, all the information should be available on the web page somewhere, and now we have the post example here to turning on a device. So let's open BOS and let's create this device. So for this tutorial, to this webinar, I'm gonna create a IFTTT folder, and I'm just gonna add a simple lamp in. Lamp, and I can of course select this lamp and add it a template so we know it is a lamp. And again, for this example, I created a virtual lamp. This lamp can be any device. This could be a KNX device, Z-Wave device. It could be BACnet, you name it. Doesn't matter. Any node, any device that's in BOS can be added in this service. The only thing that matters is the path where this device is. So in this case, you can see if I click on Info Node tab, and under Path we see where this lamp is. And if I go here under our post example, I can actually copy this turn on device URL, copy it here under IFTTT, and now we need to change. This is a KNX example of turning on a KNX device, but we're just going to change this KNX into IFTTT and then lamp. Okay, so one thing that we need to note here is that since we are using a JSON content type, we need to add double backslashes here when we are setting up our path. So this way the IFTTT service will correctly find the lamp and then turn the device on. And if we go through the whole body here, we're able to see that at the end, this is what we are actually doing with the device. So we are at this point, we are turning on, so setting the value to true to our lamp. Okay, so once this is done, we can create an action, and of course we click finish. And now we can actually use the webhooks documents folder to test this API out. All right, so this service out. So let's select our account. We can go to my services, and now you should be able to see that we have webhooks also added here under your IFTTT. We click webhooks, and we go to documentation. So here you'll be able to see that a new window pops open, and this is their way of testing out this this URL. So we created a test button, if you remember, test button event name. So we need to, of course, add it in. And once this is added in and everything goes correctly, if we click test it, and now we go to our lamp and click value, you see that the lamp has turned on. Okay, so if I turn off the lamp again, see the lamp has now been turned off. Again, opening the IFTTT, click test it, the event has been triggered, and if I open the lamp is now turned on. So this is how a basic communication between IFTTT and BOS via RPC service would work. So this is, as you can see, very basic, very simple principle how this works. We can add additional functionality, of course, to our button event. That's the next thing I'm going to be showing you now. So we are going back to our test button. I select it, and I can click here settings, and here this is just the same window that opens when we created our IFTTT command. Okay, so at the end, this is the body that we are currently using to turn on the lamp. And as you can see here, we have a add ingredient button as well. So if I click this and let's say add another value 1, you'll be able to see that this text, this string popped up at the top. We're not going to need it at the top, of course. We're just going to cut it, and now we're going to paste it here. Instead of true, we're going to send this value 1. Okay, so once this is done, we can save it, and now we can go back to our webhooks. Oh, no, create, sorry, my services, webhooks, documentation. We go back to the testing phase, the testing window, and again, test button, we add it in. And of course now, since we added, if you remember the URL or the body, we added a value 1 string. So now we can actually use this to turn off the lamp or on. Let's see what's the current status. So now the lamp is on, and I can turn it off. Test button, and now you can see the lamp has turned off. You can go back, true, and turn the lamp on. So you can use this URL body here, and you can actually have custom values that are going to be sending to BOS. Okay, so as you can see, the information that you might be missing at this point should be available on a web page, and there should be also an abundance of information available online on how other services on IFTTT work as well. So next thing that I want to be showing you today regarding our RPC service is how you can actually communicate between two different BOS servers using the RPC. So if I'm just going to minimize this, and this is my, as you know, my testing jigsaw that I have here in the office, but I also have my own local machine running here. Okay, so this is my local PC that I have the stream turned on now, and I already created an RPC HTTP command. So if I go here under info, we can see that the name and the object type is HTTP. So I created a HTTP device in my local network, and then I added the local IP address of my jigsaw, and then of course I added the path where the RPC is. I used the same username and password to connect to my jigsaw via RPC, and you can see that the connected is true, and now I can actually use my local machine to send values or to send commands to my jigsaw. So I created three command nodes. The one is set value true, false, and then I also created a get value. So to get this URL, I again went to the web page, to our web page, and I copied this command. So the post data command. I copied this, of course I tweaked, it's not a KNX light. I tweaked it to be a IFTTT lamp, and now I am using my PC to control device that is running on a different BOS server. So I can now see if I can actually open this in two screens here. So on the right screen is my testing jigsaw, and on the left screen is my PC. So if I select my lamp, and I can see the current status of the device is set to true, and now I can run this false command to turn the light off, and again turn the true command to turn the light on. So now you can see that even this kind of connection is possible with BOS, simply connecting one RPC computer to another service, and then using the same commands to send and receive values. I can also get status at value as well. So for this, I just used the there should be post data example get light status. So I used this URL to get the status. So currently my BOS is getting the status true, and now if I turn the light off here, the light will turn off, and my get value is still at true. I can just simply send a request, tell me the current status of the device, and now we see the correct feedback. So feedback also available to get the feedback from the device. Okay, so I'm just gonna open up to see what's going on currently in the chat. Perfect. Okay, you see you're a little bit behind. Are there any questions? Okay. Okay, so there are no questions regarding, complaints regarding the audio or the video, so I'm guessing that everything is okay. I see more than 150 people joining me today. Thank you all again for joining me. Hope you're staying safe, staying inside, and hope you're going to learn a couple of things today during this presentation. Again, if you're going to have any questions during the whole thing, please just write them down, and my colleague Matisse will then later answer them after the introduction. Okay, so the next thing that I was planning to show you today is a little bit more explanation regarding our analog log, or not just analog logs, but logs in general. We see a couple of emails coming in. No worries. So I already created, as you can see, a folder under my task that's named logs. So I'm simply gonna add a simple analog log settings for the log at the top, and then at the bottom we have all the input values that are being saved in this log. So on the top, of course, we can enable or disable data logs, and the next very important thing is our input value. So this is where you would set your any input value, of course, of your device that you want to log. So for this case, I'm also gonna add a integer and value 1. So we're actually gonna have an input value that we can log. So we go here under devices, logs, and we find our value. Okay. So again, we are mostly going to be working with virtual devices and virtual logs and so on in this example. But of course, if this is an actual project that you're working with, of course, you would link this to your actual device that you want to log. So this could be any consumption or any meter that you want to log. You can now link it here under input value. So the next thing we can do, we can also limit how many database writes we have. The next very two important settings we need to set is our write interval and write type. So what write interval is everything that you click on any node, you should have a short description of what this function does. So write interval, of course, maximum database writes interval in seconds. So as you can see now we have 300 seconds. I'm just going to change this to 10 seconds. And now write type, this is going to be what value is going to be written down in your log during that interval time. Okay, so during that 10 seconds interval, our input, our data log is going to log the average value of those input values that we're going to be sending. I'm probably going to say log a lot during this log part presentation, but bear with me. A write type can of course be changed. You can either write down an average value, you can write down a maximum or minimum value. Usually people during a short period want to write down an average value. So let's just create an example on how this works. Okay, so we do have our write interval to 10 seconds. We have our average is our write type. And now we have our analog log, or this value 1 as an input value. So I'm just going to change this input value a couple of times. So now it's at 0, and I'm going to change it at 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so we change it 4 times. So what analog log is going to do is this is going to combine or add those numbers together and then divide them by how many numbers there are, and it's going to save down the average value. So in this case, so 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 divided by 4 is 2.5. So it's gonna write down the average value that we're gonna send. So we can send. I'm just gonna increase the write interval here, and we can increase this number as much as we want. Of course, devices are programmed to send the values, and we're gonna receive different values different times. So I'm just gonna random numbers gonna put in, so we fill out our log, and you can see that the log is now writing down during all the intervals. The log is writing down average values in an interval. So at the end you will have a number of different values displayed at the bottom, and now we can of course save these values. We can export them, we can email them, and so on. So these values are saved, and we can of course set the delete all data settings as well. So after 2 years, every new data is going to remove the oldest data as well. Okay, so we do get a lot of questions from our clients. So analog log 2. I'm just gonna create another analog log here. We still get a lot of our clients asking us in our forums, tickets, and so on. The data logs are great. I'm logging data and so on. I have a large amount of devices in my configuration, and I don't want to have panels upon panels upon panels of just logs. How can I combine all these values together? So this is of course also available using our BOS. So I'm just quickly here. I'm just gonna actually extend this to 1 second here. So we have many more values coming in. So I'm just filling out this analog log here. So we just kind of have a couple of values here. So we do have a couple of values. So my plan was to show you how you can. I'm just going to create a blank panel for us. How we can, let's say, look at the logs, manipulate the logs a little bit better, and how we can also display multiple logs within one analog log. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly drag and drop my analog log here under in the frame. Of course, selecting different things from the control will then display different values. For instance, if I say current value, it's going to only display what's the current value. It's not going to display the log. For that, we need to drag our analog log and of course select the data logger. So once the data logger is selected, and if I connect to my log here, you'll be able to see that our log has been displayed. Of course, by this point, but of course, you let the data logs run in the background. You input more and more data, and the logs will get bigger and better and more visible. Just for an example, you can see that we have the data log, and our log is maximum value is here under 45, and you can see the log working here. And now if I select my log in my configurator, I can now control it, and I can also add additional functionalities to my log. So to do this, I simply select the log and go here under objects, and I open my collections. And I open this, and you'll be able to see that we have our logs displayed here. Or for now we only have the one log. So I click it, and now we see we have different functionalities that can be manipulated with the log. So we can also, of course, log 1, we can rename it. We can either also show different values. So we currently we're only showing the average value, but we can also show the maximum, the minimum, step plot, whatever. We can also change the color. So we can change, let's say, to bright green, for instance. So once you have multiple different logs within one log, it's very, very crucial for you to change either the number or the title, the text, or even better, change the color. So you know exactly which log you're looking at. So regarding the question of about the multiple logs in one data logger, is we can add additional logs here by using this add button. So we click add, and we select our other log. So other log is selected, and again, same features, same text. So we can also change this to log 2, for instance, doesn't matter. And we can of course change the coloring as well. So we're going to change it to bright red. So we have a green and a red log. So if I open my client again, you're able to see, okay, the green log overpowered a little bit the red log overpowered the green one, but two logs are now being displayed in one. Of course, if you have a data log or analog log that is filled with information from days, hours, and so on, this analog log, of course, is going to expand through the whole screen. You'll be able to see the values very clearly. But at this point, we only have a couple of values here, so it's not completely useful at this point. But this is how the principle works, how you can control and how you can add different logs to this one analog log. Okay, so the next thing that I wanted to show you today is how to add a little bit more complexity to your configuration. Or in some cases, you want to calculate your consumption or calculate the number of days, seconds, time, whatever. You need to calculate something in your configuration to get the correct value that you're searching for. And for this case, we are going to be using our calculations task. So again, we go to under tasks and add our calculations. So anyone that ever used this is probably very familiar how this calculation works, but we still have questions on how you can calculate different values with each other, how you can add brackets in our calculation. So my point today was to show you a little bit how the calculation works, how you can add your values in, how you can calculate the values, how you can add brackets and have the correct output that you're looking for. So of course at the top we can of course enable or disable the calculation. We can also change our calculus here. So this is the calculus operations for our polynomial values. We can of course change them from constant to integral or derivate, but at this point we're going to be trying to keep it simple, keep it easy for everyone to understand. So I'm going to be using a constant value. And at the end, if we can also change the constant factor, I will also be showing you later how this works as well. Okay, so to add your operations or your mathematical operations, you can of course, or your calculations, you can of course add them here under operations. So the idea for today would be to have to get some simple calculations in and then gradually get a little bit more complex so you can see how BOS works and how the calculations work. So first of all, let's just calculate a couple of different values. Very simply, very easy. So to add a calculation, simply click add, and you'll be able to see that this math operation window pops open. So the first thing, we can add a constant value. We can also of course add a different functions that can be added as well. We can also add a custom input value. That's the part I'm going to be coming back later on. And we can also add bracket operation, which is here under sub operations. But just for starters, let's just add a number 5. So that'll be my first number. And if I click OK, you'll be able to see that the 5 has been added under our operations. And now if I click operations again, click add, you'll be able to see that now we have the operation type available. So what are we doing with the first value 5? We can use either addition, we can subtract, multiply it, or divide the value. So that's just for the first testing purposes, use addition, number 5, and click OK, and you'll be able to see that we have 5 plus 5. Okay, so if I go here under values now, you should see that our end result is 10. So 5 plus 5 is 10. If you want to use a very simple calculation, you want to get too complex, and you were just hoping to get a different end result, you need a bigger number, you can of course add this factor, a constant factor, and change it from 1 to 2, for instance, and now we get 20. All right, and of course we can also change this to be 0.1, right? Instead of 10, we're going to get 1. So you could use this constant factor to tweak the end result of your calculation. Okay, so next thing I wanted to show you is, I'm just going to change the constant factor to 1 again. We're going to create a brand new calculation, and we're going to add a simple bracket calculation as well. So we can add, let's just add, keep it simple, add number 5, and I'm going to click add. Now instead of just adding a number 5 now or any other number, I can actually use brackets to calculate between those numbers. So to add brackets, instead of adding a constant number here, I'm just going to add numbers under sub operations. So I click add, and now I'm going to add 5. As you can see, now the 5 has been added here, and I'm just going to multiply this. So multiplication, and then we're going to multiply it by 2. So we have 5 times 2. And once I close this operation, just 1 second. Once I close this operation, now we see that we have the calculations that was put in the subcategories, sub-operations here under brackets. So now the calculation will of course multiply these two numbers first. So 5 times 2 is 10, plus 5 is 15. So this is the way you can see how you can add more complexity, especially if you're working with some heavy-duty calculus and have some very advanced math that needs to be done, and you can do it in BOS as well using this type of calculations. But of course, most of cases we're not going to be calculating just numbers with each other. You're mostly, in most cases, going to be calculating other values from your configuration, such as, I don't know, consumptions, whatever, like power, like humidity, days, seconds. You can be calculating any node in BOS. Just for this presentation, I'm also going to be adding 2 values, and we're just going to do a couple of simple calculations between value 2. So this could be, again, any number, any device, anything that you have in BOS can be used here as an input value in our calculations. And now instead of, if I click operations again, and instead of using this numbers, we can now use this input value option. So we can simply click here add, and I can go to my calculations and I can select my value 1. So now instead of number 5, my value 1 has been selected here to be calculated with. And we can of course simply add another calculation. Let's add multiplication and select our value 2. So now we are multiplying our value 1 to value 2. And of course we don't have any, now it's every value is at 0. So let's just 5, and then value 2 is going to be 5. Oh, we have a new subscriber, thank you. And our calculation will be of course 25. So if one value is going to be, we'll be multiplying with another value. So this is very simple, very easy. How you can also you can make it as simple as you want, and you can of course make it as hard as you want, and as hard as you need it, basically. So if you're, like I said, if you're going to be calculating something very difficult, and need to have a specific number that you're looking for on the output, you can of course use this calculation task to basically do some math and do some calculation within the BOS as well. Okay, so the next thing I want to be showing you today is the ability to open other apps within BOS. As you might know by now, BOS does support a number of different devices. So from KNX, Z-Wave, you name it. We do try to keep in touch with our clients and try to add as many devices that is possible for your home automation. We also support integration of other APIs that might not be supported by BOS by now. You can use our HTTP and basic driver to basically integrate any open API device. But in some cases, the simplest way is to simply open another app within our app. So this can be, let's say, a camera app that might not be working. Another subscriber, thank you very much. This could be another app, maybe an alarm app that doesn't have an open API, or a camera app, or whatever. Or let's say your client wants a specific app to open when, I don't know, a camera or someone walks by, for instance. So this can be done by simply opening other apps within your BOS client application. So to do this, I'm just going to simply remove our log here. We're not going to be needing that now. You go to your theme, and then on the top menu, you see we have a general button that can be added. So I click here on the general, and we have a start program function that can be used. So we simply add this, and you'll be able to see this, a blank button now appear on the screen. So if I select this blank button, here we have all the settings that we need on the right side. Okay, so as you can see, we can open applications, Android applications, iOS applications, and of course Windows applications. Good thing about this and BOS is that you don't need a button for every OS that you have. So you don't need a separate button for Android. You don't need a separate button for iOS or Windows. You can simply use one button and then just simply use different devices URLs to open the application. So the plan was, I can show you now how you can add how you can add devices URLs for each operating system. So for starters, since I am working on a Windows machine, I'm just going to be using our BOS client for Windows. So we can of course enable it at the start, or we can do it at the end. And now we need to send a program name. So in order to open another application in Windows, we need to specify the path where this application is installed on your PC. Of course, the application needs to be installed on the PC and on your iOS or Android device in order to open it. You cannot just open a device that's not on your computer or your phone. And for this case, we need a path where this program is installed. So to do this, I'm just going to open my Windows, my PC, and I'm just going to find my application that I want to open today. So for today's purpose, I'm just going to open a simple Sonos application. So as you can see, I found it where the Sonos is installed on my PC, and here is the exe file that I'm looking for. So I can simply go here at the top and copy the path, and I'm going to paste it here on the program name. And of course, I need to add sonos.exe at the end. So we also need to add the application exe file that we're actually running. So we can't just put a folder there. We need to add the application as well. So once this is added in, and if everything goes correctly, now I'm on my client application now, and if I press this button, as you can see, the Sonos application will open. So again, this can apply to any app. This can be as long as you have it installed on the PC or on your Android or iOS device. This can be any application that can be opened within the client application. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you is how you can do this on an Android device. So for Android devices, a little bit different, of course. And for this case, we're going to be needing the devices or the application's URL. So to get this, I'm just going to go to Google Play Store. Open it up, and just for the presentation's sake, I'm gonna again find our Sonos application. So once you find the application on the Google Play, you need to copy a part of the URL that is for this application. So the part that we are looking for is this one after the ID and after the end symbol. So this is the part of the URL that we're looking for, and every application should have very similar, of course, path. Every application can be a little bit different, but it should be looking very similar to this one. And we simply enable it. We select our program, and under program name, we copy the URL. So now on my iOS or not iOS or Android phone, I can simply click this button and the Sonos application will open. And again, this can be any application that you might need. It could be a door phone or another application that's currently maybe not supported by BOS, and it's crucial for your client to have it. They can simply have a button and the device will the application will open. Of course, we also support application opening for our users that use iOS. For the iOS, is very similar to the path that we have here, but the iOS devices or applications should have a unique like, how should I say this, a unique starting URL. So in most cases, or in most cases, it should be like the application's name, so Sonos, and then you have the this symbol and 2 slashes, right? So if you're trying to open another app, it should be exactly the same. This could be I don't know, door phone. This could be, I don't know, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. This can be you can just replace this, instead of Sonos, replace it with your app and add these 3 symbols at the end, and the app should open. In some rare cases, the developers of the app does not use this URL. They use a different one. So in that case, usually a simple online search, or maybe even contacting the developers and to get this string, the URL should be enough to get you this string that we require for you to open another application. Okay, just gonna see what's going on our webinar. Still see there's a lot of people going on, a lot of people watching. Thank you all again for joining me today. See if the iOS application does not open as I showed you now. Of course, like I said, every device or every application might have a different URL. So an online search, or maybe even contacting the app developer should provide the correct URL information that you're looking for. Okay, so again, thank you all for joining me for this long. We still have just a couple of last little bonus things that I want to show you today. Is we still do have a couple of questions for our for our clients that ask us, oh, we created this visualization and it's not looking as, how should I say, polished or as good as maybe the demo one that you have. We created our devices, we added the devices, we added our tasks, but we still cannot get the full automation going. How full, like, it doesn't look as distinguished as it should be, because usually if probably everyone that's joined me today has already built a basic configuration. If not, then you'll be able to see how this is done now. When you have your KNX or you have your Z-Wave devices, when you drag and drop them into your configuration, and if I simply, just for an example, this living room ceiling light, if I drag it here, you'll be able to see that the device has been automatically added into the frame. And if I add another value, and so on and on. And again, if I do the same thing with the scene, you'll be able to see that it's almost indistinguishable, that it is a scene and not a device. Okay, maybe it does have a different icon, or maybe it has this wheel here, but for a first-time user, he just might think, oh, this is another device. And usually how we create our projects and how our clients are creating our project is they are using our top and bottom menus to add the scenes and schedules in. So to add your top and bottom menu, you simply select your frame, and here on the right side you'll be able to see we have a top and the bottom menu. So if I enable this bottom menu, you're able to see that a hidden menu opened up, right? So if I drag and drop my scene into this menu now, you'll be able to see that it's looking completely different from the devices. And if I add another one, and let's say a daylight, you'll be able to see that also the alignment is horizontal instead of vertical. So if I open this frame now in my configuration, it's very clearly to see which is a device and which is a scene, right? So I can now click it. I can control the scenes control the devices that are in this scene. Of course, if everyone is familiar how scenes are worked, you can also, of course, click or hold to manipulate the device that's going on. So you can also play around, and you can clearly see what is a device and what's a scene. Very simple, very easy little tip for you. You can of course use a top menu as well. I have a little panel link prepared here as well. So if I open the stop menu, for instance, another panel will open. So it's see very easy. With just a couple of clicks, you can add additional functionalities to your configuration. Okay, so like I mentioned at the beginning, um, in our last update that we released, we listened to a couple of suggestions that you had, and we tweaked our KNX import wizard. For those of you who are working with KNX and BOS, you know that there's a couple of ways you can add your KNX devices into BOS. First way, of course, is you can simply click add, and you can manually add a group address in. So you can select the type and add it in manually. This is usually done after the first integration. Let's say you add a device later on, and instead of integrating the whole thing, you can simply um, add a group address in. But in most cases, people are using the ETS import wizard. So in the past, you would go here under ETS import, you would find your demo project. I have a demo ETS project prepared, and this is the screen that you're familiar with. So this is where all the group addresses are added. You still a couple of group addresses need to be added in manually, as you can see here, regarding the type. So you can go simply clicking and dragging. In the previous webinars, we went through the whole thing, the whole procedure, how the whole integration is done. So if you're not familiar with this, you can of course go back and watch the previous webinar in the previous video. But the thing that needs to be done in the past, you would have your KNX address for your lights. So you have KNX lights on and off, and then you have your off status addresses, right? So in the past, you would go, okay, so this is 100, and my status for the ceiling is 110, and you would select this one, and you would type in 110, and you would have to go through this, and you would have to do this for the whole configuration. It is slow and tedious, but that's the way it's done, and it's also the way it has been done in the past. But what we added now in the latest update, you can actually select the status addresses. So if I click and drag my status address for my lamps, I can now right click, and I can actually copy the address. So I copy the address, and now if I select my on and off addresses, I can right click and I can paste this address to my status address. So as you can see now, in a couple of clicks, all the status addresses have been added in. So you don't need to go and manually write them all down. Now you can very simply go here, you find your on and off, and you have your on and off status. You right click it, copy, and then you would go to on and off, and you would paste it under status. So now it's even easier and even faster to add your KNX project into BOS. Okay, so at this point, I think I've tortured you enough with my rambling and my introduction and the whole thing, the webinar. So at this point, let me just open up what's going on. You're still on a bit of a delay, so my colleague Matits will join you today for your questions. So hopefully you, I think he was quite active during the whole presentation as well. So some of the questions might already be answered, but hopefully now he will now join me to the stream. And you'll be able to hear his voice now, and he'll be talking to you, and he'll probably be asking, or not asking, but answering all of your questions that you might have. So hopefully this goes smoothly. A couple of disclaimers: if you do get an error during this transition, simply try and refreshing the stream. The image of his screen should be available soon. I'm just gonna at this point stop the stream at this point. I'm just gonna click end, and maybe half a minute or a minute later, Matisse will join you and he'll answer your questions. Again, thank you.